Come swing it with Wing It, where we learn how to get wealthy through real estate while maintaining life's balance and striving to be the best version of ourselves. All right, welcome to the Swing It with Wing It podcast. I'm pretty darn excited to be here, and I hope that this journey will be helpful for you as well as for me as I get a little bit more comfortable with doing podcasts in general and putting myself out there and talking about all kinds of different stories and experiences. Not all of them were good, but things that we can learn from each other and hopefully cover content and questions and experiences that will actually be well received. So one of the things that I wanted to do first and foremost on my first podcast was to talk about things that I get asked about all the time. And one of the challenges is that, so I have this website and this company that I'm the CEO and own with my wife. It's called Utah's Best Vacation Rentals. And when we started in 07, 08, we were probably Utah's worst vacation rental. So it was a pretty bold, and some might say arrogant name. The truth is I'm always striving to be my best. I'm always striving to take it to a different level. And so it wasn't like, hey, look at me, I'm the best. I was actually the worst. And how do I hold myself accountable? I look at things a little bit different. Some might think it's a little bit backwards, but if I want something, I'm going to project it as though I am there now. And so a couple of the questions that I get all the time, and on our website, people will also fill out our input forms where we've got people that own homes that will go on to our website and fill out owner forms saying, this is my house, this is my name, here's my phone number, my address, my email. They'll put a few photos of their house, and they're inquiring for Utah's Best to manage their house. And what they usually want is, hey, here's my house. This is what it looks like. This is where it's at. What would this home generate for cash flow or just in general, having you guys manage it? And so they want to know, is this house a good vacation rental, first and foremost? And two, the next big question is, what kind of revenue will it generate? So that's actually going to be the first question that I touch on because I get it so much. And the second question is going to be from a buyer's perspective. Okay. Buyers fill the same input form out, asking or wanting to talk to anybody, about, what is a good vacation rental to buy? What do I got to do in order to be successful in today's competitive market to actually buy a vacation home? And so the first issue that we have is, all right, I'm trying to decide how much time to invest with these inquiries, and who are they, and are they actually looky-loos, or are they actually do they have the ability and the potential financially to pull this off? And so many different variables go into that, and realistically, it's like a 30 minute to an hour conversation to really vet each of these owners and buyers. Because a vacation home typically is more expensive than a long-term rental, and it's furnished and typically comes with amenities. So we're going to talk about how to successfully buy a vacation rental that is cash flowing and that it's a good investment, and what it takes to prepare yourself and your family and your finances to be in a position to do that. Another big question that I get and that I try and vet on any buyer or any homeowner is where their home's located. Is it going to be in an area where I got code enforcement with the badge on, and whether they're packing heat or not? It's not that they're on a power trip, but when they show up knocking on the door saying, I'm code enforcement, you are illegally renting your home and you're in violation of code such and such, who the crap cares, and it's blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, that's happened many times in the infant stages of our company. Well, it can be very dramatic, and it can be very problematic too. So the big question that I'm always trying to figure out, and the question that other people should be asking and sometimes do, is, okay, now that I want to buy a vacation home, or now that I own a house and I'm interested in rolling into a vacation rental pool, is it zoned for this? Am I going to have problems with the neighbors? Am I going to have problems with the city and the ordinances of the city or that county or that state? And some cities are a little bit tougher than others, and some actually have updated codes and ordinances that prevent it or prohibit it, and others don't, because it's this Airbnb thing is what I usually say. Just that's what people have branded it and understand vacation rentals to be, even though they were among the last in the business. They've done a great job with marketing, Super Bowls and everything else. So, those are really critical issues. And I learned the hard way on setting up houses and then having issues with cities or neighbors, or just the wrong house in the wrong area. It didn't cash flow and wasn't as successful. So that'll be the third question that we cover. And then the fourth will be, do I want to, what are the pros and cons of managing my own house as an Airbnb, or hiring a professional short-term or nightly property manager like Utah's Best, for example, or many others that are out there. There's national companies and there are local companies, and the pros and cons between all of the above. Okay, there's discounted management companies. There's individuals that just all of a sudden they had success with their home, so they think they're all of a sudden experts, and they're coming in and over-promising and under-delivering. So we'll talk about that. The fifth question that I think probably needs a little more attention and something that is kind of a deal killer is when you're dealing with a buyer and even a seller, right, a homeowner. This goes on both sides, and we'll cover both. When you're trying to help a buyer identify a vacation rental that they actually would be interested in staying there with their own family part-time throughout the year, that will also be successful at generating revenue, not be a drag on the monthly budgets, and actually start to generate cash flow. Okay, and obviously cash flow is the difference between your monthly expenses and the gross net rental income that an owner receives from a manager. Okay, so you got the gross, let's say $10,000. Manager might be at 30% on a short-term rental, or 8 to 10% on a long-term rental. You end up netting as a seller $770 or $7,000, and of that, you got a mortgage payment, let's say it's $5,000, and you got utilities that might be another $1,000 a month. What about maintenance and upkeep and home improvements? And so those are the kinds of things that apply to short-term and long-term rentals that I think are worthy of diving into a little bit more. So, and I get those questions all the time. The other part of that fifth question is, with such low inventory that's available on the market today, people just aren't selling their homes like they always have, or different phases in the market. So right now, I think I looked, there's 23 or 2,400 homes that are actively for sale in Utah. Okay. And wow, there's tons and tons of buyers, right? And there's a lot more buyers right now than there are homes to buy. And so there's this disparaging conflict between buyers trying to buy what they want, whether it's for their own family or themselves, or for an investment. And then so Utah in general, along with many other places across the country, are struggling with that. And if you really have a buyer that's capable and has good credit, has a good down payment, and is ready to buy a vacation home or a rental or any home in general, like, how do you advise buyers to prepare, and what are the conversations that you got to have to make sure that they're successful? And let me tell you something, like, the importance of a good realtor, the importance of a good strategy, and when to be aggressive and how to best prepare financially and personally and mentally and physically, like what it actually takes to be successful in that in this current insane real estate market, which, in 20-something years, I've been in the business, 25 years, I've never seen anything like this. 2005 or 6, it was pretty crazy too. We had a lot of buyers and not as many homes, and so, but it was nothing like this. And so we'll talk more about how to best provide the support and the understanding and the advice for realtors, for any type of a buyer that wants to buy a home in this competitive market. So those are the 5 questions that we'll cover today. We're going to have a lot more topics to discuss, on how to set up the right vacation home, what kind of amenities you're going to want to have, what the differences and the pros and cons between long-term, short-term, and, how to recognize a deal and how to be in a position to strike, and then have the confidence to literally say, upon inspection, when you've got this small window of opportunity, I want this house and I'm willing to pay that price right now, and then seal the deal. So many fun things to talk about, so many important things if you want to be successful in real estate or build your long-term or short-term rental portfolio. So here we go with question number 1. How to get started in the process of buying, identifying a vacation home. First things first, I get a lot of buyers that want all the information, right? But they haven't even pulled their credit report. In fact, they don't even know what their credit score is. And oftentimes as a mortgage guy, and that's how I originally got a start in the business, fresh out of college, which has been a real blessing, actually. And a lot of realtors should probably learn a little bit more about what I'm going to discuss. And that is how to identify a buyer that is going to waste your time and help set them up for failure, or versus a buyer that is reasonable with their expectations and is actually living a life in alignment with what you can help them succeed with. And that is ultimately identifying a home, closing on the home that is in line with what they're looking for. So first things first, what's your credit score? If you don't know, there's an app that I think you should download, and it's something that I did, and it's been really helpful, and I recommend a lot of people to do, and it's called Credit Karma. And Credit and Karma starts with a K, okay? Download the app, take 15 minutes, put in your personal information, make sure you're very accurate, and then voila, you're in. It'll tell you what 2 of the 3 of your credit scores are. It'll also tell you what accounts that you have reporting on your credit and what the balances to the limit are on your credit. And so ultimately, the first thing is you got to have good credit to buy any kind of real estate, okay? That's the first thing that we start with. Second thing, what's your income? I mean, these are all mortgage finance questions that are pretty important. Why? Because if you're looking to buy a vacation home, I hope that you have bought your own home first, or have maybe been through the experience of being a responsible borrower or homeowner. Now, not always is the case. Like, I'm not saying, and we can talk more about this, that you have to own a house that you've lived in or whatever before you buy your first home, and if that can't be a vacation rental. Of course you can, the sky's the limit. Whatever you believe out there is something that can, you can accomplish. But typically, identifying the different barriers and the different items. So first, how's your job? How's your employment? What's your income like? What is the debt to income ratio of your current situation before you even consider the new payment on the new long-term or short-term investment? And what you'll find is if you're working with somebody responsible, trying to make sure that you're, not overcommitting, not over, getting a little bit excited. You don't want to put the cart before the horse. So if you're making $10,000 a month and you're living with your parents and you're not having any rent that you're paying, and or utilities, and you're stockpiling cash, okay, You just graduated college, like a year or two ago. You got a great job, great career. And you know what? Heck, you want to buy real estate. Well, wouldn't it be great, especially if you're one that likes to travel, maybe have a job that, permits you to travel all over the world and work remote from home. Buying a home that could be a vacation rental that you live in, sparingly throughout the year, or you live in maybe even half or the majority of the year, and you are able to rent as well when you're not there, that can be done. Now, licensed professional managers like Utah's Best Vacation Rentals or many others that come to mind probably won't want to bring that home on and manage it for you. It might be something that you end up managing on your own. But ultimately, once your finances are in order, you got enough down payment, you identify what home you'd like to either buy. If it's a second home that you want to buy as an investment, okay, well, it's all about finding out what the individual needs and wants are, and then finding somebody that can bring those together for you and find you and successfully negotiate and help you prepare to be successful on the purchase. So how do you get started? The first thing is, let's look at your finances. Let's make sure your job is solid and secure. Are you going to buy this as a first home, a second home? The principle still applies. So we've talked a little bit about that. Now, research is the key. Like anytime you want to be successful at anything, it's who do I know that's doing this? Or what information is readily available that I can search online, or different podcasts like this or others. Surround yourself with people that have successfully already done what you're hoping to do. Okay. Now how much time is this going to take? Well, unfortunately, if you don't know anybody that's doing it, you might have to go to the research, right? And if you want to minimize risk, you research more. Okay. That's one thing that, I always advise people to do. It doesn't matter what age. You'd be shocked at how many people just don't understand the concept of you shouldn't buy it if, worst case, none of it happens the way you hope and you think it will, that you can't afford to carry that liability. Okay. Now, it should be an asset, but we've learned through years past that it can, the market can tank and you can be left holding the bag on what used to be an asset that now becomes like a boat anchor. So how do I get started? Well, I wish there was an easy way to summarize it, but I'm going to give it a shot. Get pre-approved, know your finances, know your credit, and identify if you have the time and the resources to do research on homes that are coming on the market for sale, or if you have the time to door knock or research different homes that you're interested in, find the owners of these homes. You can go to the public records. You can go get the addresses of the homes you're interested in and do Google searches, or talk to a local title company, get the name and number or name and address of the mailing address of that owner if that's not the where they actually live, right? If it's an investment. So identify who owns these houses. If you don't have a realtor and there's not homes that are actually on the market right now, owners that I represent on the management side are telling me they get calls almost weekly about their vacation homes from other investors or buyers that want to buy their house. And by the way, a lot of buyers right now that are successful are paying cash. And so and I talk about that with these buyers who inquire about buying a vacation home. The first thing I'm looking for is how likely is this buyer going to succeed, and how much time should I invest in this conversation, which is part of the reason I'm doing this podcast, because they are looking for me for guidance, and I want to make sure that they're successful. Their time's valuable, and so is mine. And how do we fill each other out and make sure that we're in alignment and we believe that both of us can be successful together? So right now is a really tough time. We'll talk about that a little bit more on the fifth question. So do you have to be a home buyer in order to get started in the vacation rental business? And I'm going to say you do not. There are plenty of people out there across the country that actually don't own any of the homes that they rent. Now, when I got in the business, the market tanked. I had 45 rental properties that were all long-term. 4 of them were vacant, all at the same time. I was going to launch one, but I ended up taking a lot of cash. It was very uncomfortable for me and my family at the time. After the market tanked, my income plummeted. And, I put about 75 grand of cash. Like, I took it right out of my safe, okay? And I bought furniture with it. And my wife was like, what in the world are you doing? Well, if she wasn't at the time a homemaker and had never worried about bills or income or, living an uncomfortable life financially, then I probably wouldn't have been able to get away with it, to be honest, because it was a bit risky. And but the same concept applies. Like, it's one thing buying a vacation rental. Is it furnished the way that it needs to be to being a successful nightly rental? Is it in the condition that it will need to be a successful rental? People are going to be paying high premiums to rent from you to get the kind of cash flow everybody thinks is available, which it is. But the home needs to be in good shape. Why? So they don't have maintenance problems. This is a 365-day business. And unfortunately, one of the cons of this business, especially if you're going to be managing on your own, and one of the cons of being a property manager on nightly rentals is our vacations and our holidays are no longer the same. Our guests are getting to celebrate with their friends and family like national holidays, just like July 4th and President's Day and Easter and, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. These are all huge revenue generating times, right? Well, I used to have a great time during those days as a manager, and as an owner of a vacation home. If you're managing it yourself, those are no longer pleasant holidays, or as pleasant, unless your home is dialed in, unless it is in great shape and everything's working the way it should, and you do preventative maintenance, and also it's nice and newer the better. But ultimately, you want to try, as an owner of a vacation home, try and prevent any possible thing that could disrupt the guest experience or your own life. You want everything to go smooth, and you want to get 5-star reviews, and you want the guests ultimately to come back. So those are a lot of different things that we've discussed, and I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. There's just so much, but hopefully that gives you an idea of what it takes to get started, and what kind of time commitment that you can expect. And we'll talk briefly about how do you manage a vacation home and make side income if you don't have credit, if you don't have a savings account, if you don't have a house, and if you just have extra time on my hands, right? Well, it's kind of hard unless you know somebody, a friend, a relative, or somebody that actually owns a house in an area that people want to travel to. It's hard to actually make any money at it unless you do enough research and grow the confidence, if you will, to take a risk like this. Okay, here's a scenario. Uncle Johnny just inherited a house, okay, from a relative that passed on, and it's like a new house. It's perfectly furnished. It even has a hot tub and actually a private pool in the back. Well, Johnny's a construction worker and works full time and is a workaholic, and he's got no time or experience in real estate. Okay. He's inherited this house, doesn't know what to do with it, doesn't know anything about renting or vacation rentals or what it takes. Okay. But he's sitting on a gold mine. Well, Johnny, and you might be his favorite nephew. All right. Well, you've been working on learning how to become a good Airbnb manager. And you've been waiting for the opportunity, right, to strike where, holy cow, I've got all my education. I've read everything you can on Airbnb and VRBO and Google and watched YouTube videos, and I've listened to podcasts, and I know what my pricing strategy is going to be. I know the importance of bed counts and how many, the value I'm going to offer with having 14 guests versus the competition might be 10 or 12. I know how important a pool is, especially a private one, and a hot tub. And I know all these different things and statistics. I'm just looking for a house that's furnished to get into the mix. Well, I say, Uncle Johnny, I want to help you bring in some cash flow on your house. Okay. And here's what we're going to do. You come up with a simple agreement that you are going to manage that home on behalf of Johnny, and you're going to pay him 75% or 70% or 50%, or some are 10, 15, 20% of the gross nightly rentals. Okay. And you're going to essentially act, once you have a signed agreement, to act on behalf of that owner. Okay. You're going to go ahead and create a new Airbnb listing. And maybe if you're really feeling ambitious, you also pay the $4.99 or so to subscribe and create a VRBO listing. Those are the two major websites that will readily accept your home into their pool of different homes across the world. Okay, the most reputable. There's all kinds of others like Flipkey and Turnkey and other managers and different things. You can go on KSL, which is a Utah free ad, but ultimately, now that you got a contract, now that you've got an opportunity, and the home is, maybe it's not perfect, but it's good enough, you can go ahead and start marketing that property online and taking reservations for that home. Hopefully you're confident that the home's paid for, or there's not going to be any interruption. You have a contract and you're good to go. So you offer this house for another guest and family who've got reviews on Airbnb or VRBO, and you basically become the host and you book these vacations, and you essentially start bringing in revenue. Okay. I mean, you'll be shocked if it's a desirable home in a desirable area. You didn't have to put one penny out of your pocket. You never had to do a credit repair or credit check. No down payment. And what are you doing? You're helping your Uncle Johnny. Are you kidding me? Who doesn't know like a favorite Uncle Johnny or somebody known Johnny? Are you kidding? So that is kind of a cool way to get into this business. And, some people oversell and underdeliver. I would actually spend more time learning how to do it right. But sometimes, if the right situation comes along and people have these amazing assets and aren't pressed for money and mortgage payments and all these utility payments and such, you can learn, trial and error. Sometimes that's the best way to learn. But that's one way you can get involved in vacation rentals without owning a house. And when they come and they stay, Airbnb deposits the money right into your bank account, and you can virtually just Venmo the money right over to your uncle on the departure of every guest and stay. Once they do their reviews, it's basically done, and the transaction's over with, and everybody's happy. So you generate $2,000 on the first stay of 5 nights, $400 a night, and you give Johnny 1,000 of it, or you give him 1,700, whatever the deal is. And holy smokes, you just made $1,000 or whatever the difference is. And you get to do that over and over and over. And so many things that contribute to that process and which houses are going to be the best. And there's so much information now out there. In fact, Airbnb and VRBO, a while back, they used to just be listing sites. And now they are definitely for profit. They went corporate. They have shareholders now. HomeAway owns VRBO, and obviously Airbnb is now a publicly traded company. And when they did that, one of the challenges is that all the fees and all the costs went up. And not only that, but what they did is they restructured things. So renters now pay the fee to rent homes on Airbnb and VRBO. They pay the fee. If you think about it, owners are being charged on VRBO the annual prescription or subscription. And so the renters pay too. And that's corporate America for you. And it's not a bad thing. It's just, it's a lot more expensive if you're a renter to rent homes on Airbnb and VRBO versus finding a reputable property management company that has multiple homes on maybe their own direct website. And you know what? There's ways to make sure they're reputable. First, do they have social media? Do they have their own website? Those are huge. Okay. Well, what do their websites look like? What do their social media look like? Do they have good reviews on their website? Do they have good reviews on Airbnb and VRBO? For example, you go and find one of Utah's best listings of one of our 100+ homes, and you can see how many homes we actually manage right there. And you can see how many reviews our homes have had over how many years of time. And so different owners of homes can also manage multiple houses, and it shows you on VRBO and Airbnb. And so that can be helpful. You go to Google to find local vacation rental management companies that actually are reputable, and you can literally Google, I'm coming to Salt Lake City, for example, vacation rental homes in Salt Lake City, and any reputable vacation rental company, whether they have paid ads or ideally have organic links to their own website, that's a great way to identify a company that you trust to do business with, that you can book direct with them and avoid the Airbnb 10 to 13% fees that you may or may not even know that you've been paying for years. Same thing with VRBO. So there's all these different variables, and people think, hey, if I book with Airbnb, I get this coverage or this insurance or this third party. And the same thing with VRBO. The interesting thing is, most people don't even know that I own my own vacation home that I'm allowing a management company to manage, who markets on these websites on my behalf and on their behalf. They think VRBO owns the house, or Airbnb. I mean, it's the craziest thing ever. I mean, literally people have no clue in general how this all works. And this is kind of the reason I'm doing podcasts and trying to get this information out there, so I can not just help the owners or the wannabe owners and buyers, but there's a lot to learn as a guest and as a traveler. Are you kidding me? Can you imagine having all this knowledge and years of experience to help navigate how to find direct bookings from different property managers who are local to where I want to go? And save all this money and preserve my vacation and my experience, versus going anywhere in the country and literally taking the risk of renting a home from Airbnb who's owned by somebody who may be other than the actual owner renting it on their behalf, and trusting my entire vacation. In some cases, people vacation once or twice a year, and their entire family gets together on that one time for maybe a week. That's a big deal. Like, it's so important to preserve those experiences. And that's one of the things that I love about the vacation business. One, I can own real estate. I can be an investor in real estate. I can rent the home, and I can cash flow the home. I get to choose which homes I buy. I get to choose on how I furnish those homes. I get to choose what amenities I want to equip them with, whether they're games, like foosball, whether they're multiple flat screens, and I got the Wii and the Xbox, and I got the PlayStation. I got all these great games. I might have a ping pong table in the garage or some arcade games. I have the ability to choose what experience I want my guests to enjoy. And some things cost more money, but unfortunately, those that cut corners end up risking the guest experience and maybe 3-star reviews versus 5-star. And maybe, the customer doesn't want to come back because they didn't quite have as good of an experience as what they felt that they paid for. So these are all really important things that we deal with every day. So hopefully that helps to answer some of those questions and provide some wisdom and value there. The second question, what are the best locations, at least in Utah, to buy a vacation home? I get this all the time. And what are the different locations cost different amounts. In Salt Lake, my average vacation home, I've got 30 or so. Probably on the 3-bedroom units, they probably average between, I would say, $550 to maybe 900,000 from 3 to 5 bedroom units. From 5 bedroom to 9 bedroom units, the average is at least $1 million up to maybe even $3 million. Okay. I've got homes with indoor pools. I've got all of my homes in Salt Lake have private hot tubs, by the way. Certain things in certain areas are really important. So when you're trying to decide how to help somebody identify, I want to own a vacation rental. Well, if they don't know where they want to own, the first question I have for them is, hey, what's your lifestyle like? Or what do you mean? Well, what are your hobbies? Where do you like to travel? Do you have kids? What are your family dynamics? And the reason I ask is because, if you can help somebody buy a vacation home for the main reasons everybody wants, is to enjoy a better quality of life where they can actually own something that they don't live in every day. And they can have a manager like us do everything turnkey. So when they want to come and have a vacation and stay in the home with just a small group of their family or even a bigger group, they can come in and literally block off the calendar on our website like 24/7, and it goes live right then that owner is actually staying in the house. And so it's like, well, where do you like to travel? How often are you going to be there? Is one of the first questions that I ask, because I want to make sure, one, their goals are in mind and that they're going to be successful. And here's a situation, a little story. An older couple, not retired yet, but their parents unfortunately passed away, and they were left with $600,000. Okay, and it was all cash. Well, it turns out that the home that they sold, they wanted to not pay tax on the estate tax or the overall tax situation. So they were able to figure out how to do a 1031 exchange, which is a whole another conversation for how to build your portfolio in the rental business without paying all the tax on each transaction. But so basically what this means is the money's sitting in an escrow account at a title company or a third-party 1031 exchange company, and they have like a very short period of time to identify another similar like property. In this case, it was an investment. Well, they always wanted to buy a vacation rental. They live in Salt Lake in Cottonwood Heights up on the East Bench. And, they have a modest house, probably worth $500,000 or $600,000. It needs a lot of improvements. And, they wanted to buy a brand new or a newer vacation home where? In St. George. Why St. George? Because in Utah, it's really unique. Where Salt Lake, you got the big mountains, the higher elevation. You also get the cold and, 4 seasons are great, but maybe the sun's not shining all the time. Maybe some of the smog gets caught up in the mountains, and maybe they just want to head south and have a place to recharge the batteries and enjoy in what some people would call as sunny St. George. Sunny most of the time. Temperatures are at least 10 to 20 degrees, depending on the time, better or higher than Salt Lake. And it's got this beautiful red mountains and all these different things. It's close to Vegas, and it's Zion National Park and multiple other awesome things. Well, St. George is a great concept and a great, thing to do and to have a second home, especially a vacation rental that cash flows is a great investment, right? Well, unfortunately, they wanted a 3-bedroom. They wanted some that had 3 bathrooms. They weren't overly picky as to where it was going to be, but they wanted it to cash flow too and stay there about 4 weeks out of the year maybe and just have this phenomenal dream of, hey, you know what? We want our cake and eat it too. Well, unfortunately, that ship sailed about in St. George in 2013-14 unless you learn how to get in early on new projects and identify unique properties that can either be remodeled, that are licensed and zoned for this, or you can buy certain turnkey homes and don't pay too much or have all cash. And you can, every home's a little bit different. Every location's different. But it wasn't long before this sweet couple learned that, oh no, even 600,000, I'm out of my price range. I'm not going to be able to get a cash flowing 3 or 4 bedroom condo, townhome, or really what they want is a single family residence in St. George. So this dream quickly became a distant reality. So what we did is we met in person. I went and started to show them homes that I felt like, even though they weren't licensed, I felt like we're in areas where we haven't had problems with cities, and areas and homes that were situated nicely, where it wasn't right on top of a neighbor, or was in a good location that was centrally located and in a desirable area. Okay. They liked the concept. We looked at a home in Draper, had an unfinished basement. The purchase price was $550,000. There was 14 offers. Now, granted, we were the winning offer on that house until they decided to back out. And the reason why is because of all these different ways that I've learned how to position my clients. But the key is they had cash. Now, many other people have cash too. Okay. And I wouldn't say many. I'd say on a good property that would sell quick to just about anybody, there's usually 1 or 2 cash buyers. And if you're lucky enough to not deal with another cash buyer, then that's a good thing, because cash, quick closings. This is one of the things that I'll try and do. A quick close. I button up all the deadlines. Okay. And I make sure that there's obviously no appraisal contingencies. Make sure that, I try and find out what the seller is really trying to accomplish and what I can do to help them get the best possible offer and scenario for both sides. And there's about 10 other things that we try and do, but just to give you a few examples. So anyway, we were under contract, or just about to go under contract, and my buyers decided, okay, they no longer are interested in this home. And the reason why is because the South Mountain is by or in Draper, and it was close enough to South Mountain, wasn't on South Mountain, that they felt like it was a risk for earthquake and a risk for ground unsettling types of things, which, who knows? Nobody knows the future, but there's plenty of people that have lived there for years and years, and many others building very expensive homes and buying there that have also done the research and haven't had any issues with it. So anyway, what did we do? We pulled out. It was a little bit frustrating, and a lot of work went into that to position our buyer to be in the number 1 spot with 14, 15 other offers. Holy cow, it would have been the perfect investment. We could have finished the basement, could have rented that home well, and helped them furnish it and make some of the updates to the home to really transform it. But it was a newer home in great condition. So that's the other way to take a short-term investment or nightly rental. Find a house that's not being utilized as one now, that has the potential to be turned into a phenomenal vacation home. Add a hot tub. If it's in, really anywhere. People love hot tubs. And whether it's your preference or not, the stats have shown over 15 years of data that a hot tub will bring about 18% more in gross rental revenue to a nightly rental. Okay. So make a long story short, we ended up finding a house in West Jordan that wasn't going to be a nightly rental. It was actually a long-term rental. A home had been totally remodeled. We ended up going through the same process. We were the winning bid, went well over list price. I think this home was $499. Now it was $399, and we ended up paying like literally $550,000. Like, I don't know how they started so low or why, but regardless, buyers in this market sometimes will set the market. So that's another topic for another day. But the home had an outside entrance. The home had a closed off basement apartment that could be accessible from the RV pad. So they actually went to West Jordan, got approval for licensing for 2 different residents, non-related, to rent the top unfurnished and the bottom unfurnished units, either together as one or separately, and made the necessary improvements. We ended up paying $550. They're going to be into that about $565, and that home will end up bringing in about $4,000 a month between the two. And so sometimes aligning expectations on an investment property might not always be a vacation rental the way we think, but because that couple, they actually researched me, Googled me, found out that about my background and my experience, and they wanted to work with me, and because they had cash and because I felt like they were reasonable with their expectations and flexible to go to anywhere in Utah as well as short or long term, we decided to take them on, and we were successful in a very short period of time. So that is another example of a situation that can be helpful. Now, how do you know? Okay, question. The next question is, how do you know whether you buy a home that's licensed or unlicensed as a vacation short-term rental? What kind of risks and pros and cons that you're going to have? If it's not licensed and zoned, the city, the neighborhood, the actual house itself, if it doesn't have the license and zoning, then it's always going to be a potential risk, to be honest with you. And unfortunately, I'm actually very proactive on this issue. I founded and currently the president of the Utah Vacation Rental Managers Association to try and build a voice for homeowners and for other management companies across the state of Utah, so we can actually show up to the city council meetings and we can actually fight some of the misconceptions on nightly and short-term rentals and actually combat the lobbyists, if you will, for the powerful hotel lobby. Okay, there's hotels all throughout Utah, and it's an important part of our economy. But they feel threatened by the nightly rental business. Well, unfortunately, it's going to happen one way or the other. And so, by creating this organization, the idea is to bring on, like we have, multiple licensed management companies throughout the state of Utah that want to abide by a certain set of rules and code and, basically buoy up and lift up our industry to, abide by certain standards and processes and procedures. And some of that is education of the public. Okay. So, and really they come down to three things, and we'll get back to where to buy, licensed, unlicensed, and the risks and pros and cons. But trash, noise, and parking. Those are the three issues that can absolutely cause problems with any nightly rental. Now, if it's not zoned or licensed for it, those three things are major concern, because if it starts to impose on the neighbor's quality of life, then they and a lot of these neighbors they may not even know that you're renting short term, but over time, if you have an unruly guest, has a party that's not even, it's a total breach of contract, the one and maybe, who knows, 50 guests, they have too much parking, too much trash, and the noise, they go on for hours into the late hours of the night. Well, people are living in their homes. They got jobs. They got things that they got to do. Well, if this continues to happen, pretty soon you start getting neighbors that just are sick of it. And another reason for a professional property management company, we help manage those risks. We help educate the owners, and in some cases we educate the neighbors, and we work with the neighbors. So when those unruly guests come into the home and they book on Airbnb, you don't even know who they are. You rarely even get very much of their information. And people are willing, some people have a lot of money, but they look at that house as a party house. And our job is to try and keep that out of our business and our neighborhoods. And so the risk is that you piss off a neighbor over a short or long period of time, and they call the city and say, what is going on here? Like, this is what I'm seeing. They take pictures, they take video, they nonstop harass the city and code enforcement about your house specifically. And maybe they even find your listing online, and they won't stop sometimes. And it's just, they don't even, on half the time, maybe more, to be honest with you, some of these neighbors, they don't even, it might not even be a problem to them. They might not even have an issue, right? They just don't want to live potentially right next to one. But when they go on vacation, I wonder where they're staying. Okay, not all people stay anymore in hotels. They're fine taking their family down to St. George or Newport Beach or somewhere in Hawaii and staying in a vacation home and partying it up like rock stars, which is maybe just a nice birthday celebration, you know? And so as guests, I think that's important as we all travel in Airbnbs to be respectful of the home and the owner and the neighbors and the neighborhood. And if it says parking for 4 and all must be like no on-street parking, and then Brother Johnny, who lives down the street, or, all these different people, they know you're in town and they just show up. Well, guess what? You're in breach of contract. And not only that, you're putting somebody else's livelihood at risk, okay? And it's not sometimes what it is, it's what it looks like, right? And it doesn't matter, what the circumstances are. If you are breaking the rules are set that way for a reason. Well, good management companies, they manage that. And they make sure that the trash is taken out to the street every week. And they make sure that the trash goes back, too. And if the trash is piling over and it's there a day before the trash comes in, like the trash pickup happens, what kind of a burden is that on neighbors? Just who wants to look outside literally and see trash cans pillaging out, right? And some stench and who knows, liquor bottles and beer cans and who knows what else, right? Some of these people, they just like to have a good time. Well, that's when trash can be a problem. So professionals and owners that want to manage their own Airbnbs or have a professional, trash can cause real problems, okay? So getting it to the curb, making sure it's all picked up. And if there's no room in the cans, we actually have a guy that goes literally once a home's inspected, after it's cleaned, we assess the trash. And if we don't have enough trash bins to put all the trash bags in, then we'll actually have pay a guy to go out with his little pickup truck and pick up the trash and take it to one of our dumpsters. And so those things are really important to manage. Now, noise, there's noise sensors. There's all kinds of different things that you can install. The gadgets and gizmos, can be helpful, but ultimately publishing rules in your house, making sure your contract's clearly communicated. One of the challenges with Airbnb is we don't always know exactly who's staying in the house. We have their profile. We might be able to get a hold of them via email, don't have their phone numbers. And so oftentimes it can be a challenge, and it's important to have guests that respect the rules and respect the neighborhoods, and so we can preserve and protect the owner's investment. And, obviously it's a business. So just like me partnering with you and buying a 7-Eleven together, we're putting or borrowing a lot of money to enter into this partnership. And I kind of look at that the same way, whether you have borrowed $700,000 on $1 million house, or whether it's just paid off and it's all free and clear. It's $1 million that you own or that you control or that you're responsible or liable for. And so, as an owner, you really need to take that seriously. And as a manager or as somebody that wants to manage Airbnbs or buy an Airbnb, that's a lot of money. And you might as well just picture a big briefcase full of $100 bills. Like, that's how I visualize it, because it doesn't matter what the debt is on these assets. Right now, I probably have under my management, under my responsibility, over $100 million worth of real estate that I'm responsible for, and my team. And so, ultimately you're only as good as the team you build and the people that you have there to support you. But as you look to manage different homes or buy vacation homes or look to entrust your home to a manager or somebody, keep those things in mind. We all have room for improvement in different things, but these are kind of the key elements that can cause issues from licensure or the lack thereof. And I'll tell you this, There are certain cities you just probably shouldn't vacation rental, nightly rental, short-term rental, which is less than 30 nights at a time. If it's more than 30 nights, then pretty much any city, unless it's in an HOA, a condo, a townhome HOA, sometimes they'll have longer restrictions for rentals where they'll require 6 months or 3 months, or some cases, even though it's rare, up to a year that you can rent your home, but it has to be to one tenant for longer than X amount of time, or they can fine you nonstop and literally compel you to comply, and even foreclose on your house if you're in an HOA like that. But if you're not in an HOA and you decide to buy a vacation home, okay, or buy a home to convert, or buy one that's been rented, man, you just don't know who your neighbors are. There's two different approaches. How am I going to know with certainty that I'm never going to have an unruly guest that, throws trash, excessive trash, or has too much noise after hours, or is going to park more than the allotted home can allow, or, any of these issues can really cause issues. Well, the owner never really knows who all these people that might show up are and how many there'll be. And I can guarantee you at one point or another, this will be an issue for you or for anybody wanting to manage a vacation home. And so learning how to prevent it, learning how to deal with it and manage it are key elements into maintaining a successful business or Airbnb. And man, what do you do? Like, if code enforcement ends up getting, nonstop complaints, shows up on your door, knocks, introduces themselves with their badge to your tenants, finds out that you are in violation of their outdated code and ordinances, which in most cases are outdated, unless you're in a resort town or nearby, that were written years and years ago. Okay. And most cities have I would say, a stance where they totally understand this is going on. Most people in a city or code enforcement or staff, I would say 80% of them by now have either stayed in an Airbnb themselves or know somebody they really care or love that has done the same and had a great experience. So people are conflicted in cities and code enforcement because they realize that last weekend they might have been in Cabo staying in a vacation home, or in St. George or California or Disneyland or wherever. And now they're being called out because some neighbor may or may not have a valid reason to complain about this home, which is, in my opinion, I'm a little bit different about this. But I believe in owner rights. And I believe that if I own a house and I'm aware of the city's code enforcement with noise, and by 10 o'clock, we're not making excessive noise. And if we are, call the cops, have the cops show up, shut whatever's happening down. I believe that long-term rentals oftentimes are causing more problems than short-term rentals. Short-term rentals typically are the nicest home on the street, or how are they ever going to continue having guests come? They also are owned by owners that have a lot of pride in their homes and usually make improvements and are doing things to make sure their grass looks great, make sure that they got fresh paint and they got nice carpet, nice flooring, nice appliances, kitchen, everything. Like they're doing whatever it takes to preserve that business to make sure that the people that are paying a premium have a great experience. So they'll want to come back or refer other people to come stay in their home. What are these people doing when they come and stay in a home, let's say in Murray, Utah, which is where I'm from? Well, let's see. Instead of Sandy, Utah, or Cottonwood Heights, they come to Murray because it's more central, right? It's close to I-15, I-215. You can be downtown or the canyons, literally within 10 to 15 minutes of anything in Salt Lake County. Well, they're probably going to go to Fashion Place Mall, which is a phenomenal mall, and they're probably going to spend some money. They're probably going to go out at some point for food, and, they might even they might even go to a movie, or they might go bowling. They might do all the above, okay? They might get a massage, or they might go to a nail salon. All that money goes back into the city now of Murray and all the local businesses, okay, that would not have otherwise put their money potentially into that city. And then the taxes and they don't, it's interesting where in St. George, for example, actually Santa Clara, which is just on the border of St. George, my wife and I own multiple vacation homes close by. Well, the crazy thing is that we have our own house in Salt Lake County, and we get a discount for our property taxes, which we're grateful for. But because we own in Santa Clara multiple vacation homes that we frequent, I don't know, maybe 2 to 4 weeks sparingly throughout the year, our kids don't go to the local schools. They certainly don't ever go to the library. We've never really had a fire or a flood or anything like that, knock on wood. We just don't spend time or consume resources of that local city. Okay. Those are like all these benefits that the locals get. Now, granted, we might come in and, storm Harmons and, make the lines a little bit rougher at times on weekends and holidays. And we might even go to church on Sunday at the local church house and, the parking lot might fill up. So there are some things that are a little bit more annoying, but when everybody leaves and it quiets down, there's hardly any traffic. You got all of this money that's just been spent in this community where all these business owners and different thriving economic times are being blessed with this surge of cash. And a lot of people didn't even know where Santa Clara was or St. George. I mean, growing up, a lot of times we pass right through St. George and go to Vegas for whatever reason, or California. Now, this is one of the benefits of developments and building and the zoning and licensing. But truthfully, cities don't know what to do. Owners don't know what to do. They're being overwhelmed by these stresses from code enforcement and from random neighbor complaints, which may or may not be warranted. And even if they're warranted with this guest, we're the first person that would want to kick these guests out and never rent to them again and blacklist them to anybody that will ever potentially encounter them again. It's and we're quick to respond. And if we know about the situation, we can resolve it. So those are things that we're trying to do to raise the bar for vacation rental owners and managers and Airbnb, so we can sustain this for years to come. So let me give you a quick example of just how crazy this licensing thing is. Okay. My goodness. I get a call. I have, over the years and all my encounters with code enforcement, I found some people that could help me resolve these things, whether it's an attorney or a lobbyist or somebody that just helps resolve these issues between managers or homeowners and city and code enforcement. So anyway, I get a call during the state legislation session saying, Brad, you might want to know about a bill that's coming down the pipe. And this was literally this January 2022, okay, in February actually. And he said, there is a bill that has been written and sponsored by such and such that would make it criminal as an owner to rent their home as a nightly rental. If the city ever found out about it and didn't like it, they could actually criminally prosecute you as an owner who has owner rights if this bill passes. Okay, now there's all kinds of different cities with different ordinances and all kinds of different things, but it's to give cities the ability and the teeth and this kind of weaponry which is a complete abuse of owner rights. And what do you do? I've got multiple homes I'm aware of friends, family, whatever, that may or may not rent homes in licensed or unlicensed areas. Most of my homes, the majority of them are in these licensed communities now that are fantastic. But going back to the original days and all the stress that these homes cause for owners and things, and they put all this furniture into it, and they spent all this time remodeling it and doing all these things to make it the perfect vacation home, investing thousands, don't know squat really about the business. They're hoping that it's just like what people are wanting to do, and they have the means to do it, so they do it. And then code enforcement sends them a cease and desist. Well, oh, brother. Anyway, we got that bill killed, okay? And most people don't even know the bill existed. And I rallied some troops and other, there's some local Airbnb owners that are passionate about it. But for the most part, these relationships that I've built to preserve and protect this business prevailed. Thank goodness. Can you imagine statewide, every single city having the ability to criminalize owners that decided to rent their home, either knowingly or unknowingly, as a short-term rental, what that would have done? It's insane, that some of these things that happen. And so there is a fight that's ongoing, and there is a lot of money that needs to be dealt with to deal with these proactive, I would call them crazy new rules, laws, and proposals. And if you're not involved, it can be a challenge. So anyway, those I'll share one other story. Years ago, I went and testified up at the Capitol to basically on behalf of a statewide rule or law that was getting ready to be passed that would prohibit people from renting their house, even if they're an owner-occupied owner, to somebody who wanted to basically rent a room on Airbnb, or they just lost their job. They have an outside entrance or a basement. They wanted to rent the basement to somebody that they were going to be managing on site and hosting, and they couldn't do it because St. George City, which was the city that was putting up the biggest fight, criminalized actually this guy who was there to testify alongside of me, and we were trying to find this happy balance. Well, with software and different things that companies were rolling out to cities to help them manage this crisis, they call it, of this new trend of Airbnbs popping up everywhere and impacting hotels and their economy and different things, and having kind of cowboyish owners that don't have any clue on how to actually responsibly manage an Airbnb. They want to shut it all down. Well, we didn't get a total victory, but this was 3 or 4 years ago. It was the first law that I was able to influence and get passed at the state level with the same lobbyists, the same people that have, before I even started the Utah Vacation Rental Managers Association. So we ended up getting passed that cities actually had to verify in person that an owner was renting illegally less than 30 days in these different zones and areas that cities just absolutely want to prohibit it. They were just finding these houses online, okay? And some of them even sold. They're not even accurate. They're still up there on Airbnb or VRBO, and then they'd get the software that would just crawl online, and they'd end up just sending random cease and desist orders, okay, to homeowners, to taxpayers, to people with owner rights. They're trying to survive, literally, like put food on the table for their families. And it was pretty passionate, kind of a crazy moment I'll never forget, where I had to testify, and all these people that came to our aid, trying to make sure that there was some kind of compromise. Anyway, it ended up being where cities are now prohibited from sending out cease and desist orders, or basically you're guilty as charged without verifying that you are or aren't in compliance with the local legislation or ordinances. So that was a huge win, okay, huge win. And a lot of people don't even know that happened. And this was one of the other things that the state was trying to, this new bill was trying to propose, is the reversal of that bill that we were able to get passed, which I felt like was a step in the right direction. Now, there's a lot more work that needs to be done, but ultimately this zoning and licensing and ordinance issue is something that's happening across the entire country, not just our country, it's worldwide. Airbnb is a global business, and there are people, fortunately, that have been doing this for years and years in Europe and other areas. And so, but I see the struggle. I understand both sides. I own multiple houses, and I've owned many, many houses in my 25-year career. And I understand the struggle of living next to a really bad rental, whether it be short-term or long-term. And I understand that something needs to be done, but it's not just one way or the other. These are complex issues that, involve a lot of different situations and people. And unfortunately, cities, legislators, and different people that have power in our country, and certainly in Utah at times, they try and overreach, and they try and get involved where it doesn't need to be involved, or maybe there's a right way to do it, where there's concessions on both sides, and there's ways to allow for nightly rentals in every city. Okay, if the public wants to rent a home, and an owner wants to rent that home to the public or to a guest, there's got to be a way to make that happen and do it legally and do it properly. And, so anyway, that's just something that we're working with. We're going to continue to be proactive on. It's a fight that will continue on forever. And it's going to take a lot of resources, but hopefully that answers that question. Today's podcast was brought to you by Utah's Best Vacation Rentals. Whether you're looking for a 3-bedroom townhome or a mansion with an indoor pool, Utah's Best has a vacation home for every budget and occasion. To book your next incredible Utah vacation, go to utahsbestvacationrentals.com. Book direct and save.